We are stoked.
I'm a terrible sore loser. I don't follow the rules.
All the bearded guys seem to lie. Yeah.
There are rumors galore.
I am so up and down on my emotions right now.
Retain salary.
Okay. Where there is smoke, there is always fire, etc., etc., etc.
You don't do it.
Been there, done that.
And we'll get into it later.
They know crap about hockey.
Come on. Well, I laugh it off.
I have no issue.
Here's the thing, though. I have nothing.
I'm okay with this deal.
There was no other option.
So now you have nothing.
We already blew it.
Win now, win now.
It paid off.
I will eat my pants.
Hey guys, it's two guys in Hockey Talk, a special playoff edition tonight. Season 3, episode 21, and I've got my co-partner who knows nothing about hockey. So
well, obviously you know nothing about episodes. Did you call this episode 21?
I don't know.
This is episode 32, dude. Let's get with
I've
it.
had too many beverages.
Rev and Ev here, guys. Good to be back. We have a plethora of guests tonight here because this is a special Sunday 2022 NHL Playoff Edition for you all. We're going to walk through all the playoff series here tonight, and so we want to get through this quick. It's going to be a ring a ding-dong dandy, as Ed Whalen used to say, and I'm stoked. So why don't you introduce everybody here tonight, Pavel?
Sure. We've got a brand new gentleman joining us. Jim, why don't you introduce yourself?
How you doing? I'm Jim Donaldson. I'm in Pennsylvania. Big Rangers fan. Go Rangers.
Welcome. Well, we're going to get a little bit of your insight into that series that's going to be happening. We've got a recurring guest, Jordan.
Hey guys, how's it going? Happy to be here.
You really should grow a beard, though, man.
Yeah, need a bigger beard. I'm going for the Ethan Bear flow right now, so I actually more look like Ryan Graves right now, but you know.
Well, he's not in the playoffs, so you've got one leg up on him. So. And then we've got our political mastermind, Aaron.
And see, I just don't know why you keep inviting me back. I do nothing but make fun of you guys. Like, is there no one better right now? Evan, you got a beard. Is that on purpose, or did you just, did you accidentally fall onto somebody else's beard and just stayed there?
I drew this on. I just drew this on. I learned from the grandkids how to do this.
And last but not least, our very special Zylstra.
Hello, and thanks for having me. I found out something amazing. The shark, not the Sharks, but the Kraken. They're playing in May. Nobody expected it. But now is the appropriate time for y'all to put the beard comments in.
Okay.
I just like to say before we get going here, hey, welcome back to our returning guests, and welcome Jim to our first time. Nothing like throwing you right in the stove, man. You're ready to get baked, or I guess I should say in the oven and get baked. But I just want to say this: what's with all this beard stuff? You know, I mean, I just got a little stubble here. But you guys, I would just want to explain something to all of our followers. If you grow a playoff beard, you got to start with nothing. You can't start with something. And the idea of a playoff beard is you grow it until your team's out or the end of the playoffs, and then you cut it. So if you guys are really going to be a part of this, you better follow it right, shave it down, and then cut it again when we're done.
So you're shaving yours next week when the sweep happens then, or?
No, I think this is Evan playoff year for 2017 that's just starting to come in.
Well,
you may want to get started now for next year, so you're ready.
All right, guys. Well, we want to thank ASAP Sports Network. If you're following in the States, got a bunch of other sports and wrestling, but also hockey. We are on over at ASAP. If you're following there, hey guys, thanks. You can follow us on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. We try to find all the social media outlets, but mainly our mainstream has been Facebook Live. So thank you guys for joining us again here tonight. All right, let me kind of run through what we're going to do. Is we're going to work through all these teams, and then at the end, I want you guys to get ready because you're going to be given a prediction tonight that you're going to have to stick with. I think I'm the only one that went out at the beginning of the season and made a call who I think will be in the Stanley Cup final and win it. But, that's for the end of the show that we'll talk about. All right, let's get going. Pavel, get us started.
All right. The first series in the East we got going. We've got the New York Rangers versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Jim's going to take it away because he's a super fan and he knows both teams and he's going to be watching religiously. Jim, what are we expecting from that series?
It's going to be a close one. As of today, they found out that Jari will be out of the playoffs for the Penguins. I really don't think that's going to be too much of a problem for the Penguins. They can still score goals. So as far as the Rangers go, we're still struggling 5-on-5. So it's as long as the Penguins don't get in the penalty box, it's going to make a good series for the Rangers. I think the biggest factor to take away this year for the playoffs, regardless, is going to be the third line for the Rangers, with Philip Cheadle and Alexei Lafayette. Our first-round draft pick, Alexei Lafayette. I'm really psyched to see what they do. Other players like Goodrow is going to have to step up to the plate for the Rangers this year too in the playoffs. So it can't just be Panarin and Kreider and Mika all the time. We do have Kopp and Vetrano, which are good additions, but the Penguins also improved too. So they picked up Rascal. I think that's his name, right? Rascal from the Ducks. So I think that the Penguins are just as much of a threat. The last game of the season when they played, there was almost a fight that broke out at the end with Friedman. So I'm interested actually to see if the Rangers put Reeves out there just to get things set to tone for the first game. I'm not really much of a fan of that just because what's going to happen if you put Reeves out there. There'll be too many fights, and I think that's not something you want to start out with. We have probably the best goaltender in the NHL. But other than that, we have a phenomenal young defensive core with Schneider as well. I really like Schneider. He's going to have to step to the plate and score some, and so is Miller. Both of those guys are going to have to step. If no one else steps up besides Panarin and Mika, I think Penguins can take it in 7. I hate to say that. I hate to say that, but I think it could happen even with the backup goalie in there. Just because the Rangers, we're still not. I really don't think we're going to make the Stanley Cup, and I know I'm going to get a lot of wrath for that. But
you're not helping our fan base in New York right now.
Well, but you know what? I'm a realist when it comes to a fan, and the difference is we're still a player or two away. We have a lot of good core players in there, and we got a lot of positional players in there, but these young kids still need to develop. And this, for a lot of them, it's their first playoffs that they're really going to have out there. And because last year when we lost to the Hurricanes, in the bubble, that's not really playoffs. This is what I call real playoffs this year. We got the fans in there, we got the fans going for you. When we're away, we got the fans against us. But this is really what playoff hockey is really about this year. So yeah, I think the Penguins can take this series. Do I think they're going to? No, I think it's going to go to 7 regardless.
Wow!
Just because it is a division rivalry. And I think it's going to be great for hockey just to see it go to 7. It's going to be great for New York. It's going to be great for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been up and down the last couple of weeks, but they're a playoff team. They know how to win. They know they got a great coach. Sutherland came from Hartford. He was our Wolfpack coach for a long time, so he knows our system. He knows a lot of our younger talent that's been around. So all of that's going to take it's going to help them in the long run. So, yeah, it's going to go to 7. If it doesn't go to 7 and the Rangers win earlier, I'll be happy. But, obviously, it'll be good. It'll be a good series. It'll make it really interesting in my house since my wife's a Penguins fan.
So Jim, what do you think makes the difference in making this a good series or not?
At the end of the day, it's going to be goaltending. is Shesterkin going to be that player that he's been the last couple weeks, or is it going to catch up to him because of the amount of games he's played? And then the last couple games he hasn't even been playing. So is that going to take a toll on him? That he hasn't been hot and due. So it doesn't help that we sat out some of our good players the last couple games. I know they were meaningless games, but your team's gotta gel. And the last couple games are important to be out there and have everybody out there, because it's going, whether you win or lose, it doesn't matter if you lose to the teams, but just having everybody out there and playing the last couple games is, I think it's really important, because you're just trying to set the tone for the playoffs. And I know Panarin was hurt. I know Kopp was hurt, but and we played all these young kids up from Wolfpack the last couple of days. I think that could hurt us, in the first game or two. I really do. And but who knows? I mean, Gallant is a good coach. He came in, he shaped up a lot of garbage from last year that we had. And I can't take anything away from what the guy's done for this team. So I did not expect us to be this tied in the playoffs. In the beginning of the year, I expected us to be gradually moving forward in the right direction. This was a 180, big time. And the question now becomes, what do you do for next year? So how do you improve that from this year to next year?
No, sorry, I'm only laughing for a moment here because you're talking about what we do next year, and I'm sure a bunch of these fans are like, man, I thought this was the NHL playoffs. We're already past it.
It is. Yeah. It is, but you still have to look to that too.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't totally. you can't stop looking at next year and the years to come, because right now, if we get past the first round and against Pittsburgh, which I'm going to say is a 60% chance we will.
Yeah.
And if we play Carolina next series, well, I don't know what's going to happen out of that. We have not played Carolina good all year.
That's right.
And I'm worried at that point. I'm definitely worried. I don't think we're going to get past Carolina. I just think that's a hump that we're not there yet. And, and that's why I start saying you need to look to the playoffs now, but you need to start looking next year now too.
Yeah. Well, you guys probably are thinking the same thing as me. Is the thing about Rangers is going to be interesting. They got the better goalie. I mean, they got the world-class goalie, probably one of the best years that we've seen a goalie play. The only question really becomes his playoff experience, probably.
Yeah. And I mean, the power play too. Even if we have a lot of power plays, power play is really tough to come and score goals in the playoffs. Everybody crunches down. And the Rangers have been struggling lately on the power play.
Yeah.
So, the question becomes, are we going to be that power play team like we were all year, or are we just going to continue to struggle? So
fair.
Yeah, no, you've made some good points. I think one of the things that is interesting that's been happening in the NHL this year that you see more in other sports than basketball is resting stars, which is not normally common because, you want to get a groove going, and yet a lot of teams are resting their stars knowing that, regardless of that final game or two, it didn't matter where you ended up in the standings. Marner in Toronto, which we'll get to a little bit later, he didn't get his 100 points. He was okay with that. Definitely a mature thing, things like that. I definitely see the Rangers making a push. I'm interested to see how this last hurrah with Malkin, Crosby, and Latango, and, that's a big one. But I think in goaltending, you guys admit that you're a little bit better. So we'll see. It should be an exciting series. And again, yes.
So, hey, you were talking, Pavel, you're just saying we're going to get to it a bit. Let's do it, because the two series you're covering for us tonight, we're going to wrap up with your homer team at the very end here. So let's get you started. Toronto, Tampa Bay, man. Toronto, Tampa Bay.
Ooh, what a series it's going to be. Two highly skilled teams, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions versus a team that's had a hard time getting out of the first round for a very long time, since I believe 2004, if I recall. Like they've really struggled. Now, Matthews has turned it on this year, winning the Rocket Richard 60 goals plus. Could have scored more. He was He is currently, in my mind, the best goal scorer in the NHL right now. Not necessarily all around. I think Ovechkin still hasn't beat there. Their defense is a little bit better. Kyle Dubas has made some improvements. He's put Giordano there, who's playing with Timothy Liljegren, been solid. A lot of Toronto fans are excited because they're not facing Boston, which was almost a possibility. But I think, given the history that they have this year, Tampa Bay and Toronto can go at it each other and they can score. But like with the Rangers, Tampa Bay has a secret weapon called Andrei Vasilevsky, who is still one of the best goaltenders in the NHL, right? And he's not even, 25, 26? Like, the guy is young. He's a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer. And, Tampa Bay brings it. They've been turning it on in the last little bit. They've never been first in their division in the last few years. They were embarrassed by Columbus a few years ago. And they've got, they lost their third line. And Jim kind of alluded to one of the guys. Goudreau went. Blake Coleman went to Calgary, which Aaron will kind of chat about later, or maybe you will. So they lost that third line. But, you have Ross Colton. You have Corey Perry, who's been unreal. And, he thrives for that environment, playing in the playoffs, and he's been to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. He just hasn't been on the winning side, first with Dallas and then Montreal. So, he will turn it on. Pat Maroon wanting to show people 4 fingers instead of 3 when we met him, Jordan and I, because, he likes to show off that he's got 3 Stanley Cups to anybody that will listen, he's trying to tie J-Lo for the amount of rings he's got. But no, I think it's going to be a 7-game series, but I give the edge to Tampa Bay just because of the experience. I know Toronto fans, it's not what you want to hear, and I may sound like I'm putting them down, but you can't get past Tampa Bay. That skilled team. They're big, they're hard, they're mean, they grind. That defense, I mean, you got Victor Hedman. Stamkos is playing very well. Braden Point hasn't really been playing in the last little bit. He was playing a little bit injured. Kucherov turns it up, even though he's only played partial this season. That team is stacked, So the stars for Toronto need to show up, and that's a big thing. And, of course, unfortunately, you need to be healthy. And with John Tavares out last year, that was a big loss, your second-line center. I'm not worried about Nylander. I think he performs in the playoffs. I think he could really go for it. I'm looking at Ilya Mikheyev to see what he does. He's very hot and cold with that team, as well as can that defensive core and Jack Campbell play enough to beat them, right? Because Jack Campbell, again, has had a roller coaster of a season. He's been unhealthy. One tweak, one groin, and I don't think Peter Mrazek is going to be coming back, so it's going to be Shalgren, who's played okay as a backup, but, is he good enough to get past there? So I see it going to 7 games. I could see it being a high-scoring event, one of the higher ones, but I still give the edge to Tampa.
So what would you say, what does Toronto need to do to win this series?
Fight the demons in their minds and the voices in their heads. Tune everything out. Don't worry about the noise around you and just play your game. Don't get bogged down. Last year they played an unreal game. They were up 3-1 on Montreal, and then the voices got in their head and they came out and played like cow dung, as you say.
They played like the first hockey
dropped
puck.
The ball. Yeah. So I think they just need to focus on their game. They can score. They can maybe just be better defensively. They have to get the puck out of their zone. I think that's the big one, right? Because they could score a bunch of goals, we know that. But it's a matter of if they shut down Matthews and Marner, who's coming to score, right?
Does anyone here think that the crowd can make the difference in the Toronto Maple Leafs? Will the crowd make a difference at all? Does anyone believe that?
Not for that series, and I would also say with Toronto is the goaltending as well, because if Jack Campbell or Mrazek are not playing well, where is that team?
I will actually take a different opinion on that. I will say yes, but in the negative, in the sense that, like we already addressed, Toronto's been having this drought since 2004, and their fans are dying for a first-round win. And if they go down early, like 2 games, I just get this sense there's going to be that dread of, oh my God, here we go again. Like, don't get me wrong, Toronto fans are passionate. They're going to be there till the end. but you know what the chatter is going to be, and you know what social media is like when Toronto's not doing well in the playoffs. And it's a hard market to play in if you're a player. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Wow. Great point. Pavel, who do we put up next?
I think everyone agrees that the team that wears blue and white will win that series.
What about the white and black, Pavel? Come on.
Oh.
Okay, Pavel, who do we run next here?
We go to Aaron, and we do the Washington-Florida series because Florida, baby. Go ahead, Aaron.
You know what? The East is interesting this year because Washington's coming into this series as the first 8th seed with 100 points. Like, the East is absolutely stacked this year. So the fact that you have 2 teams with over 100 points in the first round like this, it's going to be a treat to watch. I was looking at The Athletic a little bit earlier today, and they were saying that the Panthers right now are 84% favorites over the Caps. I don't know if it's that big of an upset, but I think it's going to be such a close series because you have every game this season was 1 goal, even one went into overtime. So these 2 teams are pretty well matched, but I don't know. Just the Panthers have been so strong this year, and you look at them sort of as that team of destiny. They've been strong throughout the entire regular season. They finally have those missing pieces that were eluding them in past years and veteran leadership with Thornton and Giroux. We're also looking at the fact that we don't know what Ovechkin's health is like right now. He's probably going to play game 1, but is he going to be 100%? And yes, when Ovechkin's 100%, he absolutely feasts on the Panthers like we saw this year. But again, if he's not at 100%, what's going to happen? Because Florida can throw 3 very strong lines at you over the boards. Because when you're running Reinhart on your 3rd line, that is an incredibly deep team. But for me, I think the X factors in this, you got to look at Ovechkin. Is he going to be 100%? If he is, he can keep the series close on his own. But if he's not, they're going to struggle to get scoring from everybody else. Like, you still got Kuzi, you still got Oshie, but they just don't have the same depth to match. You have to look at Bobrovsky as well, because if he's his all-star self, he can win the series on his own. But again, he's been pretty inconsistent. In the last month, his save percentage in games has ranged from 0.6 or 8.64 to 9.68, and that's in the span of just April. So if you're going to be that inconsistent, you're going to have some issues in the playoffs. So it depends on what kind of form he finds in the next little bit. But at the same time, if they run into trouble, they do have Spencer Knight, who obviously is a young goalie who's coming up. And we'll see what happens because he did pretty well in the playoffs last year. And then you look at Florida, and you've got Huberdeau coming over the boards, who's a guy that almost took the Art Ross away from Connor McDavid. And you have Alexander Barkov, who's just, in my mind, the most criminally underrated player in the league just because he doesn't get that attention that everybody else has. If he was playing in a Canadian market, he'd be right up there with Draisaitl and Matthews. But looking at the series, I think it's Florida's to lose. I want to say Florida wins in 6.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. The Florida Panthers, they show as the favorites, but they haven't won a playoff series since 1996. They have really no experience. They're going up against an experienced Washington Capitals team. You got to believe that Ovi's going to be pushing it. I definitely see this as a pretty intriguing series, and I think it's going to be hard hitting. I think there will be look out. Who knows if there's going to be a suspension coming soon?
Well, I want to see.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say, I want to see Gudas and Wilson go at it.
Oh,
I like Gudas's beard, so I'm going with Gudas.
Oh, he's got to win that fight.
But I do want to just highlight one thing, because usually we look at these teams and we say, well, the better team or the better seed, which we've all mentioned, usually wins. But it doesn't always go that way, and we know that playoff style hockey is completely different. How will the calls go? What's going to happen? Is there an injury that could affect the team? And so it's funny that we always predict that the better seed or the better team will win or remove that or advance. But then again, there's always a lot of upsets. So I'm wondering what upsets we're going to see this year, right? But go ahead, Evan.
No, that's fair. So Is it my turn to take the next series?
You sure are. Go ahead.
Okay. Why don't I cover the good old? Let's take St. Louis and Minnesota, man.
Ooh.
When I say this is going to be a ring-a-ding-dong dandy, boys and girls, you need to sit down and you got to watch hockey at its best. I have always thought St. Louis and Minnesota Wild are boring teams. But when it comes to playoff hockey, I think both of these teams are perfectly set up. I think you're going to see a lot of hard hitting. You're going to see hard on the sticks. You're going to see great checking, block shots, goalies that can stand on their head. I think the difference in this series literally will be the goaltending. It's not going to be, there's enough guys in Minnesota that have experience, I think, just over the years and stuff like that. Even though St. Louis, it should really be able to come out, they're only a few years removed from their cup win. But I really think it comes down to that goaltending. And when you got Fleury in the background and the Flowers sitting there, and the second thing I think it'll come down to, if the goaltending is close, it's going to be in-game coaching. I'm really interested to see the coaching. Both these guys match. They line match often, and they both seem to play kind of a 2-1-2 kind of hockey with your 2 D back, one keeping central, and 2 guys forechecking on it. And so they play a lot of similarities now with the Wild. And this is not your grandma and grandpa's Minnesota Wild. They used to be, I like how it was once said by Brian Lawton, former first overall draft pick of the Minnesota North Stars. Get that, guys? Minnesota North Stars. How could you not be excited about the Minnesota Wild, even though they have nothing to do with the North Stars? But Brian Lawton said it. I used to think they were the Minnesota team, right? But they're not like that anymore. I mean, you got a superstar player. There's been no one to me really since all the players that have come through since Mike Modano played up in Minnesota there. So I definitely think it's an in-game coaching and goaltending that's going to make the difference. And this is a series that I think people aren't going to tune into. And I'm really worried that a lot of people, Jim, in the East there for you guys, it's going to be so late at night that they're not going to maybe want to tune in, because they've watched probably overtime already in another game and stuff like that. But this is a series that you got to watch. That's what I got, man. That's my take.
Well, I'll be recording it. So I watched their game a couple weeks ago that was on ABC. They had an ABC game on Saturday. It was a 3:00 game. So I got to watch a little bit of that. It was like a 4-1 game or something like that. It was pretty bad, but that's not going to be anything like that now.
No.
Totally different game. I'm throwing it out there to the group, and Jim, you can start, then Jordan, then Zylstra, then Aaron. Who do you start in net for Minnesota, and who do you start in net for the St. Louis Blues? Is it Fleury the Flower or Talbot for Minnesota, or is it Vinny Husso or Jordan Binnington, the former Stanley Cup champion? Jim?
It's going to be Binnington and Fleury. I think that you put your 2 most experienced guys out there, and you just see what they can do.
Okay, Jordan.
I totally agree. Like, you have to go with the guys that have won it before. So where Husso has done pretty much nothing other than have a good season this season, and Talbot obviously he's been in the playoffs, but he has choked up a little bit. So I mean, I'm comfortable as him as a starter, but not as taking the run. Another thing with Minnesota is they are also probably without for the whole playoffs is Marcus Foligno. So you talk about the hard hitting and stuff. That's one of their hardest hitter, toughest guy to play against, and they were going to be without him. So,
Zylstra?
Well, this has have to be unanimous. Basically, I agree. Basically, you want to go with fellow. You have 2 equal goalies, like a 1A, 1B on both teams, and Talbot's your main guy in Minnesota. Hosa's your main guy in St. Louis. So you're going to go with the other 2 experienced goalies and throw them out, see what they do, and yet you've got the powerhouse to come in for the second game if needs be, you wish.
Aaron, do you agree, or are you just going to make this show interesting?
You know what? What I will say is I think it's going to be Fleury and Binnington for sure, but I think that neither team's going to hesitate to put in their other guy. So I think if a team goes down 2, you're going to see a switch. But at the same time, out of the 2, I think it's likely that you could see Husso in St. Louis pretty quick because they've got experience. Look what Binnington did when they won the cup in their run. He came in as their 3rd or 4th seed. I can't remember what number he was, but he was yeah, exactly. So Husso's already further up the list than that. So it's in playoffs. You got to go with the hot hand. I mean,
all right,
it is how it is.
Evan, are you putting the E-Bug goalie in?
Yeah, I might. I just might throw Aaron in, man. I just might. Hey, just something interesting. He's gone on record. Bill Guerin has actually talked about the whole tandem thing that's going on, and he said that he thinks that the future of hockey in the NHL, with what happens in playoffs and stuff, might be tandem goaltending. So just look for them to easily move back and forth. Long as you win, you're in.
Jordan, your thoughts? What you're gonna say?
Dawson, Jeff Hodges, the E-Bug that was in Dallas.
Yeah, get him out there.
Yeah.
All right, Evan, what's the next series we got? Zylstra, you're going to introduce the series?
All right, we have the Carolina Hurricanes with the Boston Bruins.
Woo!
Well, this is a tough one. I don't like Boston Bruins. I've never liked Boston Bruins. And you watch them play through the year. I listen to them play. I listen to most of the games on SXM radio. And up until Christmas, Boston was floundering. And then they started kicking it up.
Yeah.
And then after the break, they started floundering again. Then they kicked it back up. And it's actually been a theme I've noticed with a lot of teams this year is kicking it up and then floundering for 4, 5, 6, 7 games. And I know I can assure you there's going to be at least 2 of those games where the Boston Bruins just literally hit the snot out of the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
Like they're going to be the Hurricane in the Hurricanes games because, and right now with Carolina and the uncertainty with exactly who's going to be in goal, and I'm sorry, I've never liked Freddie Anderson, and in playoffs it's like I don't know, but I'm predicting the Hurricanes in 6, but Boston's going to win and beat the up so much. And this is good news for Jim because I believe that the Rangers are going to win their series and then they're going to have free reign on the Hurricanes, who Boston just beat the snot out of. So that's how I see it.
Bold prediction.
Not looking pretty.
Huh?
Especially when you don't like that one team, eh? You have to actually say they might get a little bit. But that is interesting. That is really interesting. You're talking about that because the goaltending was a question at the beginning of the year, and then everyone said, "Oh, no, not a problem now." And then it became questionable at the end of the year again, and now people are thinking, "Are they actually ready?" And like you said, Boston, that streak, it just it's what always worries me? Experience.
And I mean, they say throughout the regular season, I mean, the 4 games they had against them, what was it, 16-1 or something like that? They've outscored Boston, the Hurricanes have. But I mean, it's regular season. Boston's an experienced team. They know how to kick it up come playoff time. And the Hurricanes haven't had that kind of experience year after year after year. And it's like Boston's just going to take them to town, and they're going to – I believe the Canes will win it, but it could be an upset. But they're going to get – Bruins will beat them up. That's for sure.
Yeah, I see Boston as just having one line, and like the second line is going to struggle to score. You know, Craig Smith, Taylor Hall, and let it be noted to the group here.
Taylor Hall is not getting the MVP.
Let it be noted that we tried getting a Boston fan on tonight, so Zylstra, you could have argued with him with Mike Smith, not the goaltender, I promise, just another fellow friend that's named Mike Smith.
Is he?
But it definitely is an interesting series. Aaron, maybe you can chat a little bit about what to expect from the goaltending in Boston and or even Jake DeBrusk, who's wanted out there.
You know what? DeBrusk, I'm loving his season. It always seems like when someone requests a trade, either they turn their game up or they just completely flounder and their value tanks. He's turned it up because I think he's actually starting to enjoy playing their game because they're using him properly, and he's actually getting a chance to do his magic. He's not being asked to play those low minutes now. So I think it makes a lot of sense that he's going to do well. But when it comes to the goaltending, Boston, I think they've probably got the tightest net goaltending core in terms of the tandem. And it's one of those ones where it's going to be competition, but they're genuinely going to be rooting for each other. I think that's an X factor. They're not the best goalies in that series, but I do think that they'll elevate each other for sure.
Yeah, another thing I'd like to add with Carolina actually is Freddie Anderson, I'm hearing, is out actually the first game. It's going to be Antti Raanta.
He's not ready.
So just something to keep in mind, I guess, if you are kind of picking Carolina in that one. I mean, Raanta doesn't have a good history or much in the playoffs at all. So.
Well, and Raanta himself has right now dealing kind of with whether it's injury or something else. He's, you know, they say, oh no, he's no good to go. Oh yeah, he's good to go. So.
You're saying Carolina?
I mean, they could be going to a university goalie.
Yeah, it's definitely two teams with a 1A and 1B. Like both of them for sure have that. But what if Raanta gets injured and then you have both of them out potentially? Then what does Carolina have, right? Or maybe you have all the pressure on Anderson then, right?
Hey, Jordan, who's that guy that they had in Toronto that helped them win?
Oh, David Ayers. Yeah, fan of the show. You know, maybe he comes in and steals it.
Yeah.
Well, I think they might call up Evan Reynolds.
I would like Carolina if they're playing if they're playing Toronto, sorry, because then you could toss David Ayers and you know you're going to get a win.
It's a psych job. So, well, guys, we're going to get moving on so we can get through a few. We got a few left to go here. So, Pavel, why don't we do this? I'll go into my series. I'm going to let you finish off tonight here. So I'll go to mine before we go over back to Jordan here. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Calgary-Dallas series. The Calgary, so for all you Flame fans out there, I know you are, this is what I've been hearing. I've talked to a few different Flame fans, whether it was on social media, in person. You guys are pumped. You're excited after such a great season. You got, like, for example, if you look at this, you got your first line of Tkachuk, Gaudreau, and Lindholm. They scored over 124 goals this season, and they combined for 300 plus points. I mean, if you think of it, they were both these, like in this case of specifically the Flames, though, they had top 33 in the top 30 in the NHL as well as the Avalanche. I mean, everything's looking like for a clash between these two. But this is what's important. That was regular season. This is playoffs. And while I don't think that Dallas has what it takes right now at this point, just because they've had their struggles, I think this is going to come down to secondary scoring. So it's not going to be a walkout, but I do predict this a 5-game series only because of Markstrom in the back end. I was going to say Flem fans, so sorry guys if you're a Flame fan. But I just need to tell you that you are wrong about Markstrom. He will come through. I have no worries about that in these playoffs. He's not going to falter, but it's because they're playing the Dallas Stars. Their next round is where you got to be worried. If this would be a total catastrophe if the Flames don't get past the Dallas Stars. And let's face it, the Dallas Stars almost shouldn't have been in the playoffs. They barely made it by the skin of their teeth. So I don't have a lot to say. Maybe one of you guys will in just a moment about them. And I think just between the secondary scoring, you'll get a few goals and plugs in on there. So what's that?
Robertson scores.
Jason Robertson.
Robertson
Yeah,
scores. Robertson scores. Robertson scores.
You forgot about Joe Pavelski, man. Little Joe, he's been doing it. Like, I mean, a career year for that guy. But basically, where's Ben? Where's Sagan, right? I mean, there's been so many injuries in these guys. Ottinger, I just don't think he's ready for the onslaught that he's going to face.
I agree.
No experience, too.
Yeah.
Who's Lucic going to look for?
The bench.
Pylons.
He's going to just grab anyone he can see, and he's going to hit him good. So, all right, Pavel, we better move on so we can make sure to get everybody in and give Jordan some time here.
We don't want to listen to that beard guy. I'm just kidding. Jordan, let's talk about Colorado.
Beard.
So Colorado is not as interesting or, in my opinion, going to be as close as some of your guys' series. I think the offense, we can all agree, like, both teams are pretty deep offensively. I would say Nashville actually has one of the best third lines in hockey with, I think it was Trennan, Sissons, and Jeannot. They're big, they're heavy, they're playoff style. I think that team is, like, that line on that team is going to be a beast. It's whether they can stop or stall the scoring of Colorado. Just because you're going to have McKinnon back, you're going to have Rantanen back, you're going to have Landeskog back. So you're going to have the big three. And all those guys play playoff hockey as well. They know what to do. They haven't got there yet. That's a big pressure in Colorado. That's one thing on them. Another thing I would say about Colorado is the injuries. They've had a lot of injuries this year.
Yeah.
So they can't keep on getting injured. They can't lose key guys. They're still a really good team. Problem with Nashville right now is the goaltending. They're probably going to be without Saros, so that's what I've seen, kind of reports that he might be done for the season.
Yeah.
So right now you're riding David Riddick and Connor Ingram. Connor Ingram being that World Junior goalie we had a couple of years ago for Canada. And solid goalie, but just not, like, he hasn't done anything. He's played hardly any games. David Riddick, I think, is a solid backup goalie, but he's not a starter, and he hasn't done anything in the playoffs. So it's really
That'll
tough.
make Flames fans happy.
Yeah, exactly. I love making Flames fans happy. It's my favorite thing to do. So you can tell by the in behind me here, but I think it's going to come down to a lot to goaltending. I know they call in Nashville, they call it Smashville, but the only thing that's going to be getting smashed there is the puck into the back of their net. So that's kind of my prediction on it. I would say it's probably about an 85% chance that it's going to be Colorado. I'm saying there's a chance for sure. There's a chance, but I'm going to say Colorado. I think they're going to win it in about 5. I think Nashville has the capability, but I honestly would not be surprised if it is a sweep.
Wow.
It could be the only sweep that you see in all of the first round. But I would rather be safe with saying it's going to be 5 games for Colorado. I just don't think you can handle the scoring. I think the defense is obviously, it's not bad on both sides, but I just look at the bottom pairing of Nashville, for example. You have Borowiecki and Benning. I mean, neither one can skate that well. You look at Colorado, all 6 of them, they have a 7th defenseman in Curtis Dermott, who's just a beast and can be mean. So if someone goes down, they got a guy to plug in right away. What does Nashville have? And another thing with Nashville is you have goaltending on the way. They have Askarov on the way. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they make that move. Like, I think that would be a consideration because Nashville right now is all in. As much as Colorado is all in, Nashville is all in. Guys like Duchesne, Johansson, they're aging players, so they need a win now.
And I think the one thing that we can all agree on is a big factor, not just in this series, but for Colorado to end up in the Stanley Cup final and potentially winning, is Nazem Kadri and how he plays. Is he going to get suspended again? Because that does tend to affect teams. It does. I'm just saying. I don't know, Jim, do you disagree?
No.
I would say.
How is it different not playing with him because he's suspended and not playing with him because he's injured?
I would also
screwed up the teams in the previous years. Go ahead, Jordan.
I would also say the market too. He was in Toronto before. It could come down to coaching in that point. Just having the coach tell him, listen, like, just play your game. You don't need to do the extra. You don't need to irritate them. They have enough guys throughout their lineup to be physical and just get in on the rush. One thing I'd say about Nashville is they're on the smaller side on the back end. Not saying they have like small defensemen, like an Ekholm is a big guy, but I just don't think they have like huge, like hulking, mean, super, like hard to play against defensemen, on my opinion. So just something to keep in mind. If you can get fast on the rush, start tic-tac-toeing the puck around, I mean, give the Colorado power plays. I mean, I just don't think you can stop that.
So
number one power play team.
So I just want to say, so if you're following with us here on Two Guys in Hockey Talk on our guest panel, we got Jim, Jordan, Aaron, and Zylstra with us here from anywhere from trucking down in Arizona right now, Pennsylvania, back in the western beautiful city of Edmonton, where four of us are from. Woo! But I just want to say really quickly, if yeah, well, that's our last series we're coming to in just a moment. Pavel's going to have the pleasure of talking about. But I just want to say, we don't have a lot of Tennessee followers, hockey fans. So fortunately, because basically Jordan just said they're going to get Smashville is going to get smashed with the puck at the back of the net. So if we had a whole bunch of you hockey fans, you'd be coming on. Now, if you're watching and you're mad at Jordan, you know what? Get your buddies, get online here and start commenting. Put your comments in. Tell Jordan he's wrong.
Throw some catfish in there.
All right, Pavel, even though you know absolutely nothing about hockey, I'm going to let you take your homer, Edmonton Oilers series versus the LA Kings. And you're going to take us off. You only got 3 minutes, man, so we can make some predictions here. So do something and do it good. Would you, Felix the Cat?
LA in 6. Oh, you see that? I see everybody's expression. I'm just kidding. It's going to be a great series.
It's probably going to be an upset.
It could be. It could be.
Made Evan happy.
I think one of the biggest factors in this series is goaltending. And if Jonathan Quick, the way he's been playing, and he stole the net from Cal Peterson, if he plays the way he did in 2014 and 2012, the LA Kings can go far. The problem is their defense is a little lacking. Their forwards, you know, they can do what they can. Dustin Brown just announced his retirement after this season. So Oiler fans or the Edmonton Oilers should really speed that up so he can get off and retire. But Philip Deneau is going to have a great job. And as you know, last year, he outplayed a lot of the teams that he faced in Winnipeg and Toronto. And he's going to have the job of stopping McDavid and Draisaitl because those two guys are going to be on fire. What will Kane bring? Kane is definitely going to be a factor. And will Mike Smith continue to play the way he does? Defensively, Edmonton's a little bit better.
2007 Mike Smith.
Exactly. If he's playing like that, he can rock it. The one question I do have is if Darnell Nurse will play or if not. And a lot of the LA guys, similar to as Jim mentioned with the Rangers, is that they're young. You know, you've got your Byfields, your Kulikovs, you know, and so a lot of these guys are newer. Whereas their top line pairing is still Alex Edler and who's the other guy? So again, it's not a big names in LA. So I see Edmonton taking it in 6 and 7. And I do want to give a special shout out to Ben because Edmonton is 9-0 with him in the building. And I think they can take the first 2 games. So I like what I'm seeing from there. And I think Edmonton will go only because then we could see a battle of Alberta in the second round.
Hey, Pavel, let me ask you a question. you were mentioning that it would take 6 to 7 games to beat an LA team that wasn't expected to make the playoffs. Maybe doesn't even have quick play. Maybe Quick's going to play like he did like 8 to 10 years ago or further back. They're dealing with an old goalie and that's playing phenomenal, the best goalie in the NHL in the month this last month here, right? In the month of April.
Actually, that was Smith.
But here's the thing. If it takes 6 to 7 games to beat the LA Kings, if they meet the Flames in the second round, they're done. If it takes them that much to get by LA,
not if they meet.
Does anyone disagree with me?
Round. Not if they meet Dallas in the second round, like Jordan said, right? And that second defenseman right now on their top line is Troy Stetcher from the good old Detroit Red Wings days, right? So really, if that's your top pairing, where it's Edler and Troy Stetcher, I'm a little worried. I mean, they're missing Doughty, and unfortunately, he's out with surgery.
It's your third pairing. You have Spence on your second pairing, and you have Jersey on your first pairing.
Yeah. Well, and you have Mikey Anderson, Oli Mata still, who have some experience. But again, it's not a very deep blue line without Doughty. With Doughty, it's a completely different series.
Yeah.
But again, I honestly think can Edmonton outplay Jonathan Quick and score? Simple as that. That's all that series comes down to.
Fabulous. Great take, man. Whether we agree or disagree with you, even though you know nothing about hockey. Well, Jim, we're going to go through, guys, a prediction here. We'll end with Pavel and myself. Jim, what are you looking at for these playoffs? Who do you see in the West and the East and coming out with the Stanley Cup?
So the West is going to be Minnesota. That's because they got the best dynamic duo in goaltending.
Ooh.
I'm going to take a sleeper on the East and say that the Tampa Bay Lightning go back to the Cup, and they lose this year. But they go back. They have the best defense when it comes to playoff hockey.
Is that the Corey Perry effect?
Well, no, I don't know about that. I just think that their coach has a system in place that everybody believes in. And as long as you have McDonough playing like he plays every year, and you have the goaltender that you have in Tampa, you're just not gonna do it. I don't care if you're Florida. I don't care who you are. Everyone falls in line and plays their game. So that's the bottom line. But Minnesota is going to be the better team, though.
Okay, well, Jim, if you turn out to have the right prediction, we're going to bring you back on this show. We're going to bring Jake Ellenbogen, who does a lot on betting and runs his own blogs and is a content writer down in loves the Vegas Golden Knights. And we're going to set you up because, man, they're going to want to start betting with you, giving them the insider information because I don't know how many people that's a good call, though. It's a good call. So
did we forget about Vegas or did they just not make it this year?
Alex Martinez on defense in LA? Question?
Yeah.
My prediction is Vegas is not even going to make the playoffs next year.
Next year?
I can say that.
Okay, Zill goes past this playoffs, man. She's already set for next year. She's ripping on Vegas. She must not like them. Okay,
I drive
Zylstra.
through there every week.
You're sick of it. Okay, Zylstra, give us your predictions for the West and the East and who's going to come out in the end.
Well, I think New York State, all New Yorkers are going to be pretty happy because they're going to have another team in the conference final. And they're going to shock people and actually make it to the Stanley Cup.
Whoa.
But they are going to go against also, the Minnesota Wild.
Whoa.
Wow.
It's going to be an upset year come second and third rounds.
I got the shivers, man. The Minnesota Wild. We thought they were the Minnesota Board, and now they're getting picked for the Stanley Cup. Jordan, what do you got, man? East, West, and who's going to be the winner?
So out East, I have Florida and Carolina. And I'm going to do Carolina on that one. I think Florida has tougher matchups potentially on its side. That's tougher, plus potentially no Ekblad back. could be really tough for them, or an injured Ekblad if he does come back. So you don't really know what you're going to get out of Florida 100% yet. They still have a lot of guys that haven't played a lot of playoff hockey yet or have gone far. They have a lot of good players and everything, but they'll make it to the Eastern Final, but they won't make it through. Carolina will. And then out west, I have Colorado and Calgary. And I think Colorado will make it through Calgary. And I have Colorado winning the cup.
Wow. And how many games do you think it's going to take them to take out Carolina?
I would say 6 games. I think it'll be... I think the first 4 games will be like 1-goal games, but I think Colorado will pull it together. They're just too deep defensively. They have a good goaltender, and obviously you know about the offense.
Yeah,
they're good everywhere.
Good call, Aaron. You're up, man.
The series I want to see for the finals isn't going to happen, but I want to see a rematch of Colorado and Florida. I would love to see it just because, I mean, it's the year of retro. I'll take it. What I think is going to happen, I'm going to sound like a huge homer, but stick with me here. In the East, it is going to be Tampa and Boston. Tampa's going to come out in 7. They're going to be very eager to win again because think about it. They're the team that was supposed to win for a long time. First cup they won, it was the COVID year. Second cup they won, it was the year where all the divisions were, you're playing in your own division, then you came out that way. So they're going to want that legitimate cup, even though the last one, yes, it was legitimate. This one is a full regular season, no asterisks attached. They're going to want to go for the 3-peat, and they will want to do it big. In the West, I have Colorado Edmonton. And the reason I have Edmonton ahead of Calgary is the Jay Woodcroft factor. He has been an absolute stud behind the bench, him and Dave Manson. They have really turned the team around, and I think it's not... You hear the way the players are talking. It sounded like, I can't remember which player. I think it was Derek Ryan. He was basically saying that Tippett was saying, well, just work harder. He wasn't giving actual coaching feedback. Whereas Jay Woodcroft, he actually is doing the X's and O's the way he needs to. So I have Edmonton going to the final against Tampa Bay. And for the 3-peat, Tampa Bay will defeat the Oilers in 5 games.
Okay. Wow, that's the Oiler part is the big prediction. That's obviously not so much the Tampa, but it is interesting in the strong area. Well, Pavel, I'll let you wrap it up in just a moment. Why don't I throw my prediction out? It's not unheard of. Just before I go through all the other stuff, obviously I said that Tampa would win the Stanley Cup at the very beginning of the season. So I'm with Aaron. I've never called and predicted a team at the beginning, but I've never seen a team that's built for the playoffs and for the regular season like the Tampa Bay Lightning. The last team I remember that was like that was the New York Islanders in their dynasty of 4 straight years, and I hated those guys back then. But they were good. They were good. They weren't built to be the best in the regular season, but they were built for the long haul. You win 2, 3, and you maybe lose 1, which they're perfectly built because they got it in goal, they have it on D, and they have it on offense, and they can also cross-check you, they can hold you, they can get away and play great 5-on-5 hockey, and just so everyone realizes, they're rolling everybody in these last games. Even, I know people are sitting, but they're not even looking like they're putting out a sweat. So I think basically we are looking at Florida. Basically, I think it's going to be not Florida, sorry, a Tampa Bay, but I think it will be Tampa Rangers. I think is what we're going to get, which I'm saying because of goaltending. And then in the West, I think the Oilers, Connor McDavid is going to carry them. People have been talking. He's got a lot of pride. Long as you have goaltending from last season, and you can have the same good goaltending, doesn't have to be awesome, you will see Connor McDavid outscore him and Draisaitl. They're deeper than they've ever been. In-game coaching. They will get, if they face Calgary, Calgary's out. Calgary doesn't need to face Edmonton. I'm sorry, Flames fans. It's not because I've always been an Oiler fan, but it is because they are just the superior team in the way they match up. But Colorado will take out the Oilers in 6 games. I think Colorado is perfectly set this year, and I'm looking at a Colorado Tampa Bay final with Tampa Bay taking it actually in a 7-game series. I think this will be one of the most exciting playoffs in probably about 20 years that we're looking at. So that's where I'm standing. And then we will have the Tampa Bay Lightning, baby, be the three-time Stanley Cup champions and the start of a new dynasty.
Well, I'm going to burst some bubbles because my final is going to be Calgary versus Tampa Bay, and Calgary reclaims the cup after that 2004 debacle, which it wasn't a goal. And I see them taking it. And let me hear me out, because you got Darryl Sutter behind the bench, and he has coached his way through some pretty intense teams. They have a great third line. And as much as I love Edmonton, and the ideal, as Aaron was alluding to, the perfect ending to this season would be Pittsburgh facing Edmonton in the Stanley Cup final, and then Crosby losing. But then, of course, Connor McDavid lifting the cup, and that would be a beautiful storyline, would be the fact that Jerome McGinley would come on the ice and hoist the cup for the Calgary Flames because he's an advisor. And that's who I see it. Calgary is going to beat Tampa Bay in 6 games in the Stanley Cup final. So go Flames go, because that's literally, this team is built depth-wise. And you see Lucic go off into the sunset and to the Hall of Fame.
Do you have a Calgarian girlfriend right now?
She's actually a Vancouver girlfriend, so really.
I'd like to have a beverage count at this point.
You got the Kings Gretzky in the background. I can't take you seriously.
Oh, man.
I mean, I was going to win. Zylstra alluded to it. So Seattle's still undefeated in May, so all these teams are crap until they win at least one game.
Exactly.
I would just like to say in closing, we don't have any time, so I can't give everyone a closer today. Thanks for all coming on. But Montreal Canadiens, Stanley Cup finalists, next year, the worst team in the entire league. I know there was reasons, guys, but this is a history-making year, so maybe the Minnesota or the Calgary winning the cup could be another history-making time of year. Who knows? Anyway, we're going to have to call this a wrap. I want to thank you, Jim, Jordan, Zylstra, Aaron, and of course, my colleague who I absolutely adore. And even though he knows absolutely nothing about hockey, make sure you follow him on Instagram at Color Avenue. It's not because of his cat reflexes he's called the Cat. It's because he likes to look at cats' buttholes, apparently. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining. On behalf of Two Guys in Hockey Talk and all our guests tonight, I'd like to say, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe, everyone. Beard.
Keep your heads up, all. Cheers.